Ask Mike, brought to you by the Stadium Shop on Razorback in Fayetteville.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Yeah, we're doing Ask Mike on a Tuesday.
I was sick yesterday.
You were sick.
Really sick.
You were really sick, but we're happy you're better. And you're here today to answer everybody's questions, so we're all good. But we have a lot of questions to get into on this edition of Ask Mike, so let's jump right on into them, shall we? Our first question this week is from Joe Lemons, who wants to know, do you think the defense regressed against South Carolina? I love Musselman, but they almost lost yet another road game because Carolina was getting easy layups and dunks in the second half. Come on, this was the easiest road game on the schedule.
You know, I think there's some misconceptions about them because they have played poorly. I'm talking South Carolina. But before that game, I went and looked at their one SEC win against Kentucky, and that was at Rupp. And when you watch them, what you realize is they've got three guys that can hit threes. Now, they don't always do it, but in the Arkansas game and in the game where they beat Kentucky, what happened was they started hitting threes. What happens to your defense when the other team's hitting threes? It moves out further out onto the floor, which opens up your inside game. And that's what happened when they beat Kentucky, and it's what happened against Arkansas. Now, in the first half, they weren't hitting threes, so that inside defense was better. Arkansas had, what, a 6-point lead, 9-point lead at halftime, something like that.
Yeah.
I think at one time it was 13. But in the second half, they started hitting threes, and that moved the defense out. For about half of the second half, it was no problem because Arkansas just matched them. If you got a 9, 10, 8-point lead in that range, and you're scoring, then they're scoring, then you're scoring, no problem. You keep that pad. But then they hit a 6-minute and 43-second stretch where they didn't score. They missed 9 straight shots. 6 of them were three-pointers. And they got outscored 10-0. So they went from being up to down 1.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking in that game they're dead in the water now because there was 2:40 left, something like that. But here's what happened in the last 2:40. On the last 3 possessions, they shut South Carolina out, so they started playing better defense again. And even though their offense had gone south, they scored 7 points in that stretch. Anthony Black had a layup, Nick Smith Jr. had a layup, and then Black hit a free throw.
Not Nick Smith Jr. He's not playing yet,
Why
Mikey.
did I say Nick? Because we're going to talk about
We're
that.
going to talk about Nick Smith Jr., but he wasn't playing in that game.
Ricky Council.
Ricky Council, there you
Ricky
go.
Council hit a 3.
Yep.
And so that gave them their 7 points, and that ended up being the difference in the game, being able to score 7 points. And really, the last 3 possessions shut them out. So I think you got to give them credit. And I don't blame that on defense because that team is hard to defend when they're hitting threes.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a sign that Arkansas's defense went backwards. I just think their offense got out of whack because sometimes they start hitting threes and then it's like 6 threes?
Yeah.
You missed 6 threes? Why are you still shooting threes when you missed 6 of them?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So, again.
I would argue to say their offense regressed, like you were just saying, not
Exactly,
their
in that
defense.
stretch.
Yeah,
In
in
that
that stretch. If you don't score for 6 minutes, that's going to hurt you no matter who you play.
Exactly.
No matter if it is the easiest road game on the schedule. Kurt Carpenter asked, do you see our basketball team finishing above 500 in the SEC? I don't. And if they don't beat Kentucky at Bud Walton Arena, I see them below 500 and maybe out of the NCAA tournament. We talked about this on the Pig Trail Show on Sunday.
Now, we're recording this on Tuesday before the Kentucky game at night, so we
Yes.
don't know what happened there. So I'm going to have to take a guess here. You know, I think a lot of what happens from here on out depends on Nick Smith Jr. Now, there's a rumor this afternoon put up on Twitter, just some fan, but I figure it's a student, and students hear these things, and he said he's back at practice. Now, we don't know that. It hasn't been officially confirmed, but I have a pretty good source that says that he's not going to play against Kentucky, but he will play at home against Mississippi State, which would be on Saturday.
Oh.
So
Okay.
what I'm saying is if he comes back, if he continues to have no problems with his knee, and if he quickly gets back into the swing of things and plays well, I think they've got a chance to win at A&M.
Okay.
And at least some sort of a chance. Otherwise, I wouldn't think so, but some sort of a chance to split those road games They play road games at Alabama and at Tennessee. That looks like a killer back-to-back.
Yeah.
Two
It
road games.
is.
But maybe they could split those two. So if they do that, then they would end up 11-7, which would be good.
Yeah.
To me, that's the best they can hope for.
And they win out at home, you're saying?
I'm saying win out at home.
Okay.
And win those two road games, you're 11-7, moves you up pretty good. You're in great shape. I don't think they'll do that, even with Nick Smith Jr., but I could be wrong. You're asking me to guess, and guessing is, my guesses aren't any better than anybody else's. But I think what seems more likely to me, even with him back, is they'll split their games, 4-4, win the 4 home games, lose the 4 road games. Maybe they could win at A&M, and then that would, that would give you 10 SEC wins against 8 losses.
I think it will be interesting to see what happens, at least in these games tonight, because, Auburn and Texas A&M play, and that's a crucial game, right, to see how things happen. And Mississippi State is gaining traction in the SEC. They're looking better and better. Not saying they can come into Bud Walton Arena and beat the Hogs, but there is quite a few games left on the schedule that could go the other way.
Well, what he's hinting is that if they ended up 9-7 or 9-9 or ended up not being 8-10, that they're out of the NCAA tournament. I don't believe that. I think they're going to get in. And here's the thing. Regardless, even if they lost the Kentucky game at home or lost to Mississippi State at home and won the rest of them and then lost the road games, and so ended up like a game below 500 in conference play, you still got the SEC tournament.
Yes.
I think they'll go to, once this team gets into a neutral site situation, I think they'll be okay. I think they'll win 2 games in the SEC tournament. That puts you back above 500 in league play. You're going to get an 11 seed, something like that, a 12 seed, something like that. This is a tournament team. Muss is a good tournament coach. He's got so much research in his database that he can go to. And he just always prepares really well for NCAA tournament opponents. I think they can win 2 games in the NCAA tournament, especially with Nick Smith Jr. back. I think by that time he's going to be really playing well. And I think they can at least get to the Sweet 16. Whether they can get to the Elite 8 or not, I don't know. A lot of that depends on who you end up playing.
Yeah.
But I think this is a Sweet 16 team with Nick Smith Jr. back.
Yeah.
And I don't think how they do from here on out in conference play has a big effect on that unless they were to collapse, which I don't think that's going to happen. They're playing better, and they're getting one of their best players back. It should help.
Well, I'm sure a lot of Hog fans would be happy to see them heading back to the Sweet 16 at least. I mean, that's still a pretty incredible season. Let's be honest, guys. Razor Alex 88 says, "Woo, we narrowly avoided being on the wrong end of a miracle. What are your top moments where we were on the right end of a miracle across all sports? What are the top moments being on the wrong end?"
Yeah, I think some of these people think that all I do is ask Mike, so I've got all kinds of time to do research. I promise you, I don't have the time to do research on the top miracle and the top wrong end of a miracle in every single sport.
Mike.
Can you imagine the wrong end of the miracle in volleyball? How long would it take me to figure that out?
You have to go back years,
So I'm going to
probably.
stick with the ones that I'm more familiar with, which are football, basketball, and baseball, okay? And we got a graphic on this.
All right.
So let's take a look. For football, what else but a game which has Miracle in the name of it, the nickname of it, Miracle on Markham. That's Matt Jones to Decory Birmingham. That was a 31-yard touchdown pass with 9 seconds left as Arkansas beat LSU 21-20. Nobody who was there, whoever saw it on TV, will forget that. Basketball Miracle. Good grief. There's about 5 or 6 that I looked at, but the topper will always be U.S. Reed's half-court shot against Louisville and Austin at the buzzer to send Arkansas to the 1981 Elite Eight in New Orleans.
Awesome.
I was there and saw that happen.
Wow.
Even Abe Lemons was going nuts after he met Arkansas at the bus. We were out there, and the team came out to their bus to get on. He's out there, and he's like an evangelist. He goes, "I've seen that shot before. I knew it was going to happen."
That's great.
So it was
I
great.
wish I could have witnessed
That was U.S. Reed's shot. And then the baseball miracle, that's got to be Brady Toop's 9th inning, 2-out grand slam against Wichita State, 2004 Fayetteville NCAA Regional. Hogs trailed 9-7. They're down to their last strike more than once, on more than one pitch. In fact, I think the previous batter, they might have been down to their last strike.
Oh.
And Toops definitely more than once was facing, he gets another strike and that thing is over.
Oh, my
so
gosh.
they go from being down 9-7 to up 11-9. Won the next day, advanced to the NCAA Super Regionals, went to Wichita State and beat Alyssa's Florida State.
Yep.
Whatever they are, Seminoles.
Florida State Seminoles.
Seminoles. And then went to the 2004 College World Series. I think that was Dave Van Horn's first trip to Omaha at Arkansas. So those are your miracles. Now we get to the bad stuff, the wrong end moment.
Oh, I'm waiting for these ones.
In football, it's got to be that pass play. I wasn't here, but I was watching on TV. I was in college at the time. The '69 Texas game, James Street to Randy Peschel, something called right 53 veer pass. Texas won that game 15-14. I don't know how they pulled it off. Peschel was double covered. Street was a running quarterback, not a passer. I think they just got lucky. Basketball, wrong end. Talk about lucky. A ridiculous hanging, one-handed, looping layup from about 8 feet out by some guy named Bob Heaton, which nobody had ever heard of, which allowed Indiana. I mean, if you're going to get beat by Larry Bird. They're all covering Bird, and this goober throws it up and she somehow rattles around and goes in. Anyway, that kept Arkansas from going to the Final Four for the second straight year. They went in '78. They could have gone again, but
ouch.
Instead, it set up that Larry Bird, Magic Johnson Final Four thing there. And
well,
so
that was history.
Most of the country liked that, but we didn't like it here. So those are your miracles and wrong end moments.
Well, baseball, we know this one.
Oh, baseball, yeah.
Oh, what?
The drop foul ball.
Oh, I don't like that one.
2018 College World Series.
That one gives me PTSD,
Foul ball. Who has this? No, I've got this. No, I've got this. No, I've got this. All of a sudden, nobody had it.
Yeah, it was funny. DVH was at the Swatters Club meeting, and he was talking about the college baseball showdown, not this year, Mikey, but next year. Guess who they play in the college baseball showdown next season?
Oregon State.
Oregon State. He said, we don't like them, do we? So there you go.
Them.
We do not like them. But moving on to the next question, Hot Dogger asks, does it seem like the Hogs are getting more foul calls per game than they have the past 2 seasons? Maybe it's just that SEC teams are more aggressive this year than in the past, and that's a factor.
There was a 3-game stretch starting with Alabama at home, but really the 2 road games. Mm-hmm. There was the game at Vanderbilt. There were 50 total fouls called, 30 against Arkansas and 20 against Vanderbilt. That's 50 fouls in a 40-minute game, and that was bad. But Missouri, it was 33 fouls against Arkansas and 23 against Missouri. 56 total fouls in a 40-minute game. And I talked about this last week. I think what happened was somebody got to the supervisor of officials in Birmingham, probably, I'm guessing Yurachek, called his buddy, the SEC commissioner, and said, what are you doing here? And so then I don't know that this happened. I'm just supposing that they got together and said, we can't be doing this anymore. Because ever since then, the calls have been fairly even.
They have been.
In that South Carolina game, is a road game for Arkansas. I think Arkansas was whistled 14 times. And South Carolina 13 times.
Yeah,
Look at the difference.
Very even.
27 total fouls as opposed to 55? Come on.
I mean, you're basically, the whole game is the officiating.
Exactly.
I mean, that's just insane.
It may seem like that it's been this whole season, but to me it's been the 3 games. We didn't talk about the one at home against Alabama, but those were the 3 games where it really got crazy.
But it definitely, I remember last season and the one before that, it does feel like there is more this season.
Well, there's a trend back away from that. We'll just keep our fingers crossed.
We'll keep our fingers crossed that it keeps going that way.
Yeah, it keeps going in that direction.
Parallax Pig says a couple of years ago there was a discussion about remodeling Bud Walton Arena. We've talked about it on this show before. I've seen discussion on Hogfield about replacing Bud Walton Arena. Where does any of that currently stand?
Apparently we make people mad over at the Broyle Center when we talk about this. I don't know why. But we were told, I think you were told, that they don't like it because we're talking about rumors or something. I mean, look, I don't spread rumors. I'm just answering a question about rumors, right?
Yeah, they are rumors right now.
Okay, so all I can tell you is the rumors. There's been nothing official out of the athletic department. And the rumor is they want to renovate Bud Walton Arena And I will say that I was at some sort of a meeting down at the Fayetteville Public Library. They have this big room now, then an expanded library, and they had a bunch of people in there. And and Hunter Yurchek did get up there and talk about they want to do it, but they got to raise the money to do it. Now, it's 2 or 3 years ago. So what I've been told is they're still trying to raise the money. Now, the rumor about replacing it, I'm going to go to somebody because I'm arguing with this guy. And I've gone on here before and said, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. If you go talk to any opposing SEC basketball coach, they will tell you Bud Walton Arena is the toughest arena to play in the SEC, especially when it's a big game and it's full. You're going to get rid of that? No, I just don't think they'll do it. You're going to get rid of the place that Nolan built. His name is on the court. Yeah, I know you could take the court somewhere else, but it wouldn't be the same. What are you going to do, move Nolan Richardson Drive out to wherever you build a new arena?
I guess you could do that, but that would be weird.
And then it's right across the street from your basketball workout locker rooms and practice gyms. They can go back and forth just whenever they want to. And if you don't think that's important, a lot of times Muss has talked about, we didn't get a chance to go work out in our gym before we played that game, and it was a problem. So I know they like to go over there on home games and have a practice there the day before they play a home game. Well, it's just harder to do all that stuff. So no one has said anything to me about replacing it or not replacing it. But what the guy told me, he was trying to argue with me about this. He said, well, they've done a study and they've concluded that you can't do the things they want to do to renovate it in 1 year. So they'd have a problem. They'd be trying to renovate it during basketball season. And what would they do? They'd have to play their games in Barnhill, and they're not going to do it. So they've decided to tear it down. What they've decided to do is build this new arena, keep the old arena and play in it while they're building the new one. And then when it's finished, they will tear the new one down. This is what he's telling me. This is just a guy I know that claims he hears stuff behind the scenes.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry. I just told him to his face. I think that may sound logical to you, but I think they would figure out a plan to, if they can't do it all in 1 year, they would renovate part of it, then play, and then renovate the other part of it. They've done that stuff before.
Yeah, they've done it at other schools.
Look at what they did to football in '99. They did a whole bunch of stuff to that, and they didn't stop playing games there. So I don't buy that logic that they're going to replace it. Now, if they are, and they're mad at me for saying that they're not, then I guess.
I mean, it's just, to me, why would you want to renovate or why would you want to move or completely tear down a place that has so much history and so much, the Palace? It's it's Arkansas basketball.
Look, there are some nutty fans out there. I'm telling you, because I've talked to some of them before. There are people out there absolutely. Here's what their logic is: it's too old. That thing was built in 1994. It's too old. Everybody's building new ones.
Well, it's great.
Texas built a new one. All these schools have built new ones. You know what they've done? Those schools can't draw more than about 10 or 12,000, so they're downsizing and building smaller arenas, and everybody thinks that's cool. Well, it's not cool if you can draw 19, 20,000. Why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
So that's my logic. But what I want to be very careful to say here is, the athletic department has said nothing about any of this. They haven't said they're going to build a new arena. They haven't said they're not going to build one. They haven't said what they're going to do about renovating, how long it would take, what would be involved. All we know is officially at a meeting one time with a lot of people there in the public, Hunter Yurchek said, yeah, we want to renovate it, but we got to raise the money. And that was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And there's been nothing official said since then.
Yeah.
So this is nothing but one gigantic rumor.
Mike wants to make it clear. We are just talking about rumors, right?
And what I'm saying is, if you want to tell me that they're going to tear this thing down, I'm telling you, you're cuckoo. I don't think they would ever do it.
I think they're cuckoo as well, Mike,
They're not cuckoo. They would be cuckoo. The athletic department would be cuckoo if it did it, but I don't think it's going to do it. And the people that are telling me that they're the ones that are cuckoo. How about that?
That's good. I like that. Revolution says, I liked Mike Anderson, but grew frustrated with his team's inability to advance in the NCAA tournament. Never heard a word, though, negative in his leadership or character. Do you have a story that shows who he was away from what we saw in the games?
Yeah, I don't have a specific story, but I do have people that I know that knew him very close to him. And one of the big complaints about Mike Anderson was that when he got to Arkansas, he didn't recruit the in-state talent. He was losing your better players were going out of state. That's one of the things Musselman has done. He's like a Nick Smith Jr. You get a player like that in state, he's not going somewhere else.
Exactly.
But Arkansas lost a guy to Florida. They lost a guy to Ohio State. They're losing guys when he's here. So I'm talking to this guy that's very close to him, and why is this happening? And he said, look, here's the thing about Mike. He won't lie to recruits. He won't make them promises that he can't keep, and other coaches have no problem lying to recruits. And he was pretty much implying that Mike wouldn't cheat under any circumstances, and they would cheat. So, and then he told me, he said, but he's also like this, and he told me this story about one of these guys, one of these top in-state guys, and I don't want to say which one it was. But the rumor was that he was going to go out of state, and so he just went to see the kid one day, and he said, look, I understand that sometimes guys don't want to stay in state. That's what I've heard about you, that it's not anything against us, but that you just want to go out of state. You've lived here your whole life. You want to go out of state to play somewhere else. And he said, just be honest with me. If there's nothing I can do to convince you to come to Arkansas, if you're going to go no matter what, just tell me and I'll leave you alone. I won't bug you, and you can do whatever you want, and I won't say anything bad about you. I'll tell people, hey, he's making a decision right for him. Now, this is incredible if this story's true, because who would do that? Well, Mike Anderson would do that because that's how straightforward, honest he was. And the player supposedly said to him, yeah, Coach, you got it nailed. It's nothing against you or the program. There's not anything you could do. I'm leaving the state. Just not mad at you. I'm not mad at the Razorbacks. I'm not mad at anybody. I just feel like I've lived my whole life here and I want to go somewhere else. Hey, I did that. I grew up in Texas. I left. You know, people do that. So supposedly Mike just said, okay. And he never tried to recruit him again. Now, you could say that's dumb and say that's why he was losing players. Or you could say, I appreciate the guy's honesty. But that's what you get with Mike Anderson. There are some things he would not do to get a player.
Wow.
You know.
Wow.
He's an incredible person. He sticks to his principles. I can tell you that 100%. One of the reasons I like him so much.
Yeah.
He never, ever one time lied to me, misled me about anything, said something to me that turned out to be baloney, maybe exaggerating a little bit or maybe pushing you off in another direction. He would answer your question, or if he couldn't answer, he'd just say, look, I'm not going to comment on that. But he never would push you off and try to deflect you off into another area.
I love that. That is a good character right there. Hogs Mama wants to know, why does Mike Neighbors keep calling timeouts in the last seconds of the games when we are ahead? Seems that gives the other team time to set up plays. Auburn had no timeouts left today, and he gives him one. He gives them one, or he gives them one? Gives them one, I think, is what it's supposed to say. But
well, you and I both looked that up.
Yeah,
You told me that you thought that Auburn actually had 2 timeouts, but we went back and got the game video and looked it and slowed it down and looked at the graphics and everything. And when that timeout was called, the graphic dropped from 2 timeouts to 1 timeout.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they have the 2 teams, Arkansas, Auburn, on the screen. And under the Auburn side of it, the Auburn graphic, it lit up, timeout.
It did.
So,
and the announcers even said Auburn called a timeout.
Right. So we think you're wrong about that. We
Sorry.
think that we're 99 and 44 100% sure that Auburn called that timeout Mike Neighbors. Mike Neighbors being criticized for a lot of stuff, but we don't want to pile on with something that he didn't do.
Yeah, definitely. We double checked it, and it even said it on the play-by-play too. So we have 3 ways that we double check that. So not correct on that statement there. Marty Bird's Proxy says, we know Coach Enos, and I, for one, welcome him back. What was your first impression with the other new coaches so far? I like what they seem to bring to the team.
Yeah, we keep getting asked this a lot, so I'm repeating myself a little bit. But we go back to Travis Williams. He was the Central Florida, had worked with Gus. He was Central Florida's defensive coordinator. He'd also been at Auburn before as a co-coordinator. Very young guy, very aggressive, outstanding recruiter, but apparently in the videos that we saw, he's really a motivator. And the word we're getting so far is the defensive players love him and love his energy. But the main thing that I think that getting him did was it got you Marcus Woodson.
Yeah.
Now we got you showed me this, I think you did, that I got a lot of pushback from these Florida State fans about Marcus Woodson. And I'll go back to what I said last week. which is anytime an assistant coach or even a head coach takes what some people think is a lateral move, he's going to go from Florida State to Arkansas as the defensive. He was the defensive. See, he was the secondary coach at Florida State. He's a co-coordinator here, so it's actually a little bit of a step up in terms of responsibility. But anytime something like that happens, I want to separate normal fans from internet crackpot fans, okay? Because there's a difference, and Arkansas has plenty of them. One guy said I didn't do my research.
Correct.
Okay, first of all, let me explain something. I'm not going to research Florida State. I don't care. I don't cover Florida State. I have no interest in them. And I'm not going to go and research what people say about this guy, like sit there for hours looking at what people say about this guy on the internet.
They were saying this information on podcasts. I don't think you're listening to any
I'm not
Florida
going to
State
listen to podcasts to see what an average Florida State fan feels about their secondary coach.
Yeah.
The only research I did was I researched and went, wow, they had the #1 pass defense in the ACC. And when he got there, they had the number 13. So he was 13-1. Yep. I think most fans there would understand that's not a good thing to lose a guy like that. Am I saying that there weren't some fans that wanted him gone? Absolutely, some probably did. There are meatball Razorback fans that want everybody gone. You couldn't name a guy that somebody out there doesn't want him out of here. There are plenty of people out there that want Sam Pittman gone.
Yeah.
I think they're loony, but they're out there. So I'm not saying there aren't Florida State fans that didn't go, good, I'm glad we lost that guy. Here's what I'll say. Let's wait and see. Let's see what he does here, and let's see what his replacement does at Florida State, and we'll see how it works out.
Mike, you're good. What about the other two? Morgan Turner, we've talked about him before.
Morgan Turner, they got lucky with this guy. He was at Stanford for 13 years or 9 years or whatever, I can't remember, 13 seasons, had the reputation of not only recruiting top quality tight ends out of the high school ranks, but developing them and sent several to the NFL. They got lucky. They would have never gotten this guy, but his head coach retired. And that's how they got him. Nobody got fired. He didn't get, his head coach didn't get fired, and he ended up having to leave. Oh, I don't have a job now. I'm suddenly, his head coach retired. And so that's how he became available. Sam Pittman lucked out, but he also was smart enough to go, wow. He found that out somehow, and he knew it, and he went, I got to have this guy, and he went after him and got him. So, and he's already apparently turning heads on the recruit, according to Otis. I mean, he's really a recruiter for tight ends. So Morgan Turner's a good get. Now this Darren Wilson, he was at Florida, your Gators.
My Gators, yes.
I don't know, they were doing the gator chop there. He was not an on-the-field assistant coach there. He was an analyst working with cornerbacks. But he was apparently, according to Sam Pittman, he was about to get a job at LSU, and then there was another school that was trying to get him too. And he said, we offered him first, so he accepted us first, so we got lucky. So two of those guys, they got lucky to get them. We'll have to see about Wilson. He was a cornerbacks coach at McNeese State and UT San Antonio, but he hasn't been a cornerbacks coach at a Power 5 school yet.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I like all of these guys.
I think Wilson is going to get some help with Marcus Woodson
Yes,
on
they're
quarterbacks. They'll work together.
Yeah, there was some talk about who's going to coach safeties, who's going to coach corners, and they said we're going to coach them all together.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think part of that is Woodson working with Wilson.
Exactly.
Realizing he's up to in a Power 5 situation now. Got to up his game a little bit. I'll be there to supervise him, and we'll be fine.
Yeah. I think so as well. We'll see how it goes, as we always say on the show. In reference to several preferred walk-ons signing with the Razorbacks over the past few days, Doug Reeves says, another preferred walk-on? Come on, Coach. But Patty Nelson responds to that. I am happy Burlsworth walked on, Drew Morgan walked on, and Grant Morgan walked on as well.
Yeah, here's what I would say about any complaints about preferred walk-ons and the number that you get. Can you add? If you have that complaint, can you add? Because I know how to add. And guess what a preferred walk-on does to your scholarship total? Nothing. Zero. Yeah. There's zero risk with a preferred walk-on. Nothing. There's no risk there whatsoever because he comes in as a non-scholarship guy, and if he develops to the point where your coaches look at him and say, hey, that guy can help us, like Grant Morgan did, or Brandon Burlsworth. If you develop to that point, you give him a scholarship. That's a much better lack of a risk thing than when you offer a high school guy, because sometimes high school guys get in here, have the scholarship, and they're not what you thought they were.
They're not worth it.
You're taking the risk with them. You're taking no risk with a preferred walk-on. Barry Lunny Jr. told me, and this was back when he was still here, but he said that's the number one thing that needs to be done to this football program. He said there was a time when I was in high school where preferred walk-ons were a big deal at Arkansas, and he said they kind of got away from that a little bit. He said that is the biggest resource you can have, because you're bringing in kids, and what are they going to do? They're going to turn down an offer at a mid-major school. You know, it doesn't matter where it is. Maybe it's Army, Air Force, Navy, maybe it's somewhere like UAPB or somewhere like that. But they're going to turn down an offer there, which is a scholarship offer, to come here as a walk-on. If they're willing to do that, they are totally committed. They believe in themselves. And if they develop, you got a great player on your hands, like Burlsworth.
Yeah.
You know, if they don't, what have you lost? Nothing. Yeah. So anybody that would complain about preferred walk-ons, I don't care if they get 50 of them. You know, there is a limit on total number of people you can have in the program, but if you add a bunch of preferred walk-ons, I see no reason to complain about that.
Look at Stetson Bennett.
Exactly.
I just wanted to, y'all know his story, right? Anybody? Yeah, come on.
Exactly.
Like, there's
National championship, twice, two national championships as a quarterback. So
yeah. And he was a walk-on. Come on, please. I have nothing for that.
Guys.
Exactly. Mousetown says, baseball season just days away. We are so excited here about that. We have a lot of new guys. Yeah, 26 new faces to be exact. What do you think going in, Mike?
Well, Dave Van Horn was at the Swatters Club yesterday, and he said, you know, in spite of all these new guys, he said, the thing I like best is the chemistry is good.
Yeah, I asked him
just
about
watching them in scrimmages and watching them last fall. He said that we've already developed good chemistry among these guys. And there's no probably better example than Peyton Stovall and Borfin. They're coming back. They're two of the three veterans, position players that are back. So they're captains. But they are helping bring these other guys along, and supposedly they're all just getting along great. Now, I've only been to one of these scrimmages, so I'm going to talk about the one I was at. But I saw Peyton Stovall. I wasn't at a scrimmage. There was one where he hit 2 in one scrimmage.
Yeah.
So I didn't see that one, but I know he's been hitting the cover off the ball. Borfin has hit home runs. Brady Slavens, people that see him, the first thing you talk about is they don't think it's him because he's lost weight, he's thinner.
I didn't recognize him.
So you might think, well, wait a minute, he lost some power. He didn't lose any power when I saw him. I saw him hit a 3-run home run in the scrimmage that I was there.
Nice.
And he also had another base hit. So he's doing, I don't know what this is.
Mike, it's probably just spam, you know.
No, it's a guy calling me. Guy that sponsors the show. I'm going to have to call him and say,
there
you're sponsoring the show and you don't know when we're running it?
Sponsoring the show.
Well, he doesn't know when it's taped. So, but anyway, so those guys look good. Now, the new guys. You got this transfer from Creighton that everybody's been talking about.
Jared Wegner?
Jared Wegner, he hit a home run to left, went into the hog pen.
It was nice, yeah.
Saw that one, and he's apparently doing really well as a position player too. And then Caleb Cowley, he's that Florida JUCO transfer. He hit a home run off the top of the batter's eye. It went up so high, I lost the ball. I was shooting it, and it went above.
I saw that. I was like.
It went up above. I was like, surely it's not going that high, and it was somewhere up above where I was shooting. So he hit a home run. I think that might have been a 3-run home run. The pitchers have also been pretty good. Now, the games I saw, they didn't have their better pitchers in there, but they've got 3 starters. Jackson Wiggins, Hagen Smith have both looked good. So I think they've got 3 definite starters there with McIntyre, and then they've got 2 more that could start if they needed to, and then I think they got 5 or 6 guys in the bullpen. We talked last week about Van Horn saying this is the deepest pitching staff he's ever had.
Yeah.
So if you've got all that hitting going on, and then how about defense? I saw some really good defensive plays out there. I saw some great plays at shortstop. That ought to, because you've moved Stovall to second, which is his natural position, from first to second. So you got a solid second baseman. Now they've got 2 guys that can play shortstop, and both of them are good. So I just think they're fine, but we're not going to know until the season starts and they're going to get tested right off the bat because they play Texas, TCU, and Oklahoma State. TCU and Oklahoma State are both ranked. I don't think Texas is.
I think Texas is too.
Are they now?
Yeah, I think Texas is too.
I looked at one poll and I didn't see it. But anyway, so it looks pretty good right now, and it's just days away.
Pitching looked good yesterday as well.
You were there.
I was there.
I didn't see that one. I was sick.
Yeah, I know you were sick, but Will McIntyre and Brady Tigert started on the mound for each team, and they looked pretty. Both of them looked pretty good. I mean, it was truly their pitching looked good, especially Brady Tiger. I was impressed with him, and I feel like
I still think he's a bullpen guy. I think he's the closer, but they're talking maybe he could be a starter.
He could be a starter. We'll have to see what Dave Van Horn does with them this season. Lanny wants to know, our final question of the day, what is your opinion of the Hogville poll showing the most hated SEC teams by Hog fans? Do you think it's accurate?
Yeah,
Mike, I'm excited to hear your answer on this.
I want to make a point that this is a Hogville poll. It's not a poll of the general fan base.
Yeah.
Hogville people are different. Hogville, we're associated with Hogville and have been for several years. Lanny Beavers does a great job of running what I think is the best true message board out there. You can't just go wacko on that thing.
No.
If you start posting stuff that is just baloney, they'll ban you. They'll take the post down. I'm not saying there aren't some weirdos on there, but there are some smart people. Their baseball forum, the thing I love about it is they got forums for each sport.
Yes.
Their baseball forum is one of the best message board forums I've ever seen. Those people are smart. You want to learn about Razorback baseball, go to the extra innings forum of Hogville. But the football forum, football fans are a little nuts, and there's a little bit of nuttiness on there. But this is a poll. This is a poll that talked about that.
Yeah, so I think we're going to pull it up.
Yeah, we got some graphics on this. So what do we got here? Texas A&M. Okay, look. I wouldn't argue with that one bit. 28.8% voting in the poll said A&M is the team they hate the most.
I agree. Yeah.
That'd be fine.
Yeah.
What if Texas were if they were already in the SEC, I think they'd be at the top of the list, but they're not here yet. So yeah, the Aggies remain. People don't like A&M for reasons I've talked about. They're always, I guarantee you right now, if you go to an Aggie message board, they're going to win the SEC next year.
Oh, they are,
and probably going to win a national championship because they always believe that. So yeah, I mean, just in their weird cheers and the way they overdo everything. I mean,
they're weird.
I don't mind the Gator Chop, the Florida State Tomahawk Chop, the Woo Pig.
You mean the Gator Chomp? You know,
whatever they do. It's just that with A&M, there's like 30 of these things, and they have to memorize them. They got to go to a practice and learn all these things. It's too choreographed.
What is a yell leader? Someone explain to me what a yell leader truly is.
Well, apparently they crack bad jokes and say bad things in front of all those students. I don't know, but so I don't have any problem with A&M being at the top. Auburn, that's a little weird. It must be. I think it's a little bit of the local thing. Walker White, the in-state run-pass quarterbacks, highly recruited, just committed to them.
Yeah, maybe that was influencing the poll.
This week, if the poll's this week, they might have been reacting to that. There's also the whole Gus Malzahn and Chad Morris thing from 2 years ago. That might be part of it.
That's like old news.
Yeah, and then they got a new wacko cheating football coach there.
Yeah,
and maybe that's some of it. So they were second. Ole Miss,
I thought they would be second.
I thought, well, I wouldn't even go Ole Miss second, but
really?
that's about where I'd figure they would be.
Okay.
Again, Ole Miss is pretty close to Arkansas, so you get a lot of interaction there.
Yeah.
A lot of Razorback fans go down there, and they come up here a lot. So that's what generally sort of causes a dislike.
Huh.
But some of it is when Houston Nutt went down there after he left, and he did not get fired, by the way. He went down there voluntarily, and I don't think he wanted to leave, but he didn't get fired. But he went to Ole Miss, and I don't think they liked Ole Miss because of that. Some of it, again, was Hugh Freeze and all that business with and they were just looking at him going, what is up with this wacky guy? And then Lane Kiffin. Now, here's the thing about Lane Kiffin. I think Lane came in, and the story we always got was that he got an offer from Hunter Yurachek and said, yeah, I'll take it. That sounds good. And then Hunter Yurachek sent him okay, here's the contract. And then he kind of went, well, you got to talk to my agent. And then it turned into, what are you going to offer me? Because Ole Miss has offered him more. And I think Razorback fans heard about that, and they don't like maybe Kiffin because of that.
Okay.
Kiffin himself is not a bad guy. He's got a bad reputation, but I don't think he's a bad guy. I'll tell you why I like him is because of what he said when, you had the Mike Leach death.
Yeah.
He stepped in and really said some nice things about Mike Leach, and I appreciated that. So Widow Wayne Kiffin, I like to make fun of him,
Kiffin.
but he's not on my list anymore. So I don't know what that has to do with it. But Ole Miss is about where they thought. Ole Miss would be right up number 2. Ole Miss. Missouri would be number 2 on my list just because they're annoying.
And they're technically Arkansas's rivals.
Well, they're not. They're just number 2 on the list of being annoying.
I put rivals in quotes, Mike. Rivals.
Just generally annoying. Sitting on rocks, watching games. What kind of a tradition is it? Seniors will go sit on rocks.
And they grab the rocks and they carry them across the field. Weird.
Strange
Also
Missouri. LSU, you'd think they might be a little higher on the list than 10.6% of the fans said they hated LSU the most.
Yeah.
If you just polled people that went to games at opposing stadiums, they'd be at the top of the list.
Yeah.
LSU
but maybe it's because it's the team and not the fans.
I don't know, but if you just talk about the stadium experience for a visiting Razorback fan, LSU would be the worst.
Yeah, I agree.
So anyway, that list,
I agree.
I disagree with some of that stuff. Now let's go to
the ones that they don't hate as much.
Hog fans hate less.
Hate less.
Okay, Kentucky and South Carolina, nobody said they disliked them.
What?
Yeah, there's nobody.
Kentucky?
Yeah, Kentucky and South Carolina football now. There were no votes for we think they're the worst.
Their basketball fans are brutal.
This is football.
Okay.
This is football.
Okay.
So there's a tie. Nobody in this poll said that Kentucky or South Carolina were their most hated team.
All right.
I'm going to say that the reason they're up there is because nobody cares. They just haven't done anything to make you mad in football. Haven't done anything to make you mad in South Carolina or Kentucky.
Yeah.
So that's why they're sitting there at 0%. Georgia, 0.3%. That's easy to figure out. Georgia has that connection. Kirby Smart has that connection with
Pittman.
With Sam Pittman.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of fans respect the relationship they had and like him because of that. And I also think any of them that have ever been to Georgia, we talked about LSU being the worst place to visit. Georgia's the best.
Yeah, it is.
Their fans are not obnoxious. They don't treat you badly. It's just
Their
a good
stadium's pretty
experience.
nice,
Athens is a good place to visit. So I can see why Georgia would be among the teams that Hog fans hate less. Florida's a little weird because the
What you got against Florida?
Well, there was a time, 2005, 6, 7, 8, right in there when there was some pretty good Florida hate going on there, especially with there were just some things that happened when Petrino was here, some calls in games and stuff that went on down there. And the Florida State the hate against them was pretty good there. But what's happened is Arkansas hasn't played them a lot over the last 7 or 8 years, just a couple of times. Arkansas won one of those here, and I think they lost the one during the COVID year down there. And I just think, again, that's more of a lack of interest thing, I think, right now. Just they haven't done anything to really make you mad, but they could always do it
in the future.
So that could definitely change. Alabama.
That one makes sense.
That's pretty easy to explain.
Yeah.
You got the best football program of all time. There's nobody that has they have the top 2 coaches that have ever coached, Bear Bryant and Nick Saban.
Yeah.
And I'd throw Newt Rockne in there, and most people never heard about him, but he's a guy that was coached back in the Stone Ages. I was aware of him when I was a kid. He was already dead by that time. But that was what made Notre Dame one of the best programs in the early part of the 1900s all the way up to about 1940. But the 2 best programs, I think, ever are Alabama and Notre Dame. And Alabama had 2 of the top 3 coaches. And so I think there's a respect there.
Yeah.
And it's very different from Texas. That's interesting, too, because look at the difference in the hate for Texas and Alabama. Alabama's dominated Arkansas, just dominated them. You just can't beat them. I mean, that goes back a long time. That was back when Mitch Musgrave was here. It was the last time they beat Alabama. That was 2006. Think about how long that's been.
Oh, gosh.
So you haven't been able to beat them, but there's no hate about that. I think they just accept, those guys are good. We're having a hard time beating them. So.
And when Texas and Oklahoma join the SEC, I think that poll will definitely change,
right? Yeah, it'll change. And again, I'm not sure that poll that's a Hogville poll, and I'm thinking if you did a poll of the general fan base, it would probably be a lot different from that one. But I disagree with some of those and agree with others.
Yeah, well, I think it was a pretty good poll. You know, not a bad poll at all. That's going to do it for this week's Ask Mike. We'll see you next Monday to answer more of your questions.